Welcome to AI for Everyone, the podcast that demystifies artificial intelligence and makes it useful for teachers, students, employees, small business owners, administrators, and lifelong learners. I'm your host, Brett Hanson, a 25-year veteran teacher with years of experience exploring, implementing, and teaching AI to people of all ages. As a Google and ISTE educator, I'm here to help you navigate this quickly changing world with confidence, curiosity, and a focus on ethical, practical use. Most weeks we'll start with a real-world story, introduce a free or low-cost AI tool, teach a future-ready skill, and finish with either timely AI news, an interview, a review, or a short history spotlight. Whether you're new to AI or ready to level up, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Welcome to episode 14, Evaluating and Choosing an AI Operating System. One of the core ideas we talk about on this show is the importance of developing the essentials. I consider there to be four basic essentials: experience, skills, confidence, and taste. So as we do things with AI, we have experiences, and slowly that starts to develop our skills. More skills, we go back and try harder experiences, and after a while, this leads to more confidence. As our confidence develops, we go to even more difficult experiences, and it grows and grows until we have what is called an AI taste or a feel. So one of the main goals is to develop these essentials consistently so we can move from one level to the next, beginner to intermediate, whatever you want to call them. I have the 4 levels, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But a taste for an AI system is kind of like choosing between Macs and PCs, or iPhones and Androids. I personally am a PC Android person, but my wife is a Mac iPhone person. Right now, the two biggest players defining the choices in AI are OpenAI's ChatGPT and Google's Gemini. Now remember, this is for the everyday user. Now, it's important to acknowledge that there are 5 big AI labs that are going to influence AI in the future in the United States: OpenAI, Google, Apple, Meta, and Microsoft. And they all have products and intentions and good quality stuff to share. But OpenAI and Google are definitely out in the lead with their AI models. Now, there are other companies or organizations that have good AI models like Claude from Anthropic, and some people like Grok from xAI, but they're smaller scaled operations. These two, OpenAI and Google, represent very different philosophies on what AI should be and how it should fit into our lives. Today we're going to explore these two biggest players and trace their evolution. We're going to compare how they perform on everyday tasks and then look at the critical, often hidden social and ethical issues behind their operation. And then, hopefully by the end of the episode, you'll have a clear picture of which one might be the right choice for you, or if you don't want to have an operating system and just use them like tools. So, let's start with the one that kicked everything off, ChatGPT. It's hard to believe it was just 2.5 years ago, November of 2022, when OpenAI launched ChatGPT and it went viral, hitting 1 million users in just 5 days. At that point, it was the fastest growing release of technology. But its story actually starts earlier. OpenAI's strategy was all about releasing progressively more powerful models to the public, creating a massive feedback loop to improve them. I think it was also striving to always stay in the news as the most cutting edge technology and get that idea into people's heads that OpenAI was the leader, because for a long time they were. It started with GPT-1 in 2018, which was basically a proof of concept model. And then came GPT-2 in 2019, which was so advanced for its time that OpenAI was initially afraid to release the full model because of misuse concerns. Now, this was a time in the company's history when they had a lot more influential people in the company that were seriously concerned about safety. After their big shakeup with the board trying to kick Sam Altman out of the company, since then they've had less concern for safety, and more for research and development. Now, the real breakthrough, though, was GPT-3 in 2020. With 175 billion parameters, which could write essays, poetry, and even code, ChatGPT basically changed the world, ChatGPT-3. We all met it in 2022, and it was improved upon. That first version was improved upon and fine-tuned so that it can be conversational. So, for example, one of the reasons why it was so successful, because all you had to do was just type in what you wanted to say. Then in March of 2023, we got the big leap. This was the real game changer, GPT-4. Suddenly, the AI wasn't just text-based. It became multimodal, meaning it could understand and process images. You could upload a picture of your fridge and ask for recipe ideas. The other thing that was really important with this GPT-4 release was the reasoning. It got a massive upgrade with its reasoning skills. And ChatGPT at that time had a list or a drop-down for the different models. So you had all these different options. Now, on the uniform bar exam, GPT 3.5 scored in the bottom 10%. So there were a lot of people who were not impressed. But when GPT-4 came out, it jumped all the way up into the top 90th percentile of human test takers. It also got a much bigger memory, GPT-4 did, going from remembering about 8,000 words in a conversation to over 64,000, which for a large language model is really, really important. But the most profound shift that really pushed GPT forward was its evolution from a talker to a doer. With features like plugins and the new ChatGPT agent, it can now take action on your behalf, booking travel, analyzing competitor websites, or rearranging meetings. It is moving from a tool to an autonomous agent. And with the recent release of GPT-5, it has become faster, a little more powerful, and an even better tool. Now, a lot of people thought the GPT-5 was going to be this revolutionary change. That's what they were hoping for. But most of the reviews have found that it wasn't really revolutionary. It was more just evolutionary. A small change, an important change, a very good change, but not a super big deal. But it was a major shift for the free users, because now with GPT-5, free users can use all the tools. And I think they did that because Google Gemini allowed free users to use the full set of options for the models. Now let's turn to Google. Their story's different. It's one of a tech giant that was forced to react and catch up. In the beginning, most people thought Google was going to lead the way the whole time. But when ChatGPT exploded onto the scene, it reportedly triggered a, quote, code red at Google. And leaders were called into emergency meetings and people were freaking out. And the fear was that ChatGPT was going to be a direct threat to Google's core search business. I mean, they wanted the AI business and the AI growth, but they were really concerned at that time about Google's search business. And they were right, because AI is transforming the internet search process dramatically, already has and will continue to. Their initial response was therefore rushed. They just felt like they had to do something quickly. And in February 2023, just a couple months after ChatGPT launched, Google launched Bard. It was powered by a lighter version of their Lambda model, and the launch was kind of a disaster. There was a demo that showed Bard giving a factually incorrect answer. The product was derided by critics, and it got a negative reputation from the very beginning. But Google knew that, it was a long game. They've always been playing the long game with this stuff, and they course corrected quickly. They upgraded Bard to the more powerful Palm 2 model, and then in what really turned out to be a brilliant strategic move, on February 8th, 2024, a year later, they rebranded Bard as Gemini, which signaled kind of a fresh start, aligning the product with their powerful new family of AI models. And so they were able to sort of get people to forget about the unfortunate release of Bard. Now, unlike OpenAI's single model approach, Google introduced a family of models: Gemini Ultra, which was the most powerful, Gemini Pro, the versatile workhorse, which is a great model, and Gemini Nano, which was designed to run effectively and efficiently on devices like Android phones. Now, two things truly define Gemini. First, it was built from the ground up to be multimodal, whereas ChatGPT wanted to be first, and then they transformed and added and adjusted to become multimodal. Gemini was intended to seamlessly understand text, images, audio, video, and code. And Google knew that they were going to use it as an operating system. Its biggest advantage is the deep, seamless integration with Google's ecosystem. This is where Google really has an edge over OpenAI. And OpenAI is trying, but they can't replicate this well because Google has such a big advantage. Gemini isn't just a chatbot. It's woven into Gmail, Drive, Maps, Calendar, and all the other, not all, but most of the tools in the Google workspace. It can summarize your emails, draft a document based on your resume in Drive, plot travel tips on Maps, and if you use custom gems, you can very easily sync things together with the voice command. It is a true personal assistant for people who use the Google workspace. Now, before we go any further, I think it's really helpful to check in on what you consider to be your own AI level. So whenever I talk about AI with new people or try to explain it, I use the metaphor of AI as like water. So I suggest that you consider what sort of level of engagement, skill, and intention you want to cultivate or work at. So I have 4 levels, but when I think about it, there's really kind of a level 0 as well. So level 0 is if you are really resistant to AI and you don't even want to go in the water. You'll maybe sit on, the deck chair or something and look out at the water and see it, but you don't want to have anything to do with it. But you're still using AI. It's still in your Google searches. It's still being used to improve your investments. It's doing all kinds of things. It's in your phone. It's all around you. You're just resistant to it, which is understandable for many people. Level 1 is what I call a beachcomber. This is somebody who wants to use AI for simple tasks like summarizing articles, drafting emails, basic efficiency stuff. And in this case, both free versions are going to work great. And we're going to talk in a few minutes about perhaps which one would be better in certain circumstances. But there's nothing wrong with being a beachcomber, a level 1. Just want to make sure we know where we're at. Then next level, number 2 or level 2 is the swimmer. And this is somebody who wants to be in the medium. This is someone who probably will want to work primarily in one digital environment. And so if you are a swimmer or want to be a swimmer and you're deeply invested in Google and Google's ecosystem or workspace, Gemini's the clear choice. If you've already been using ChatGPT and you're not invested in the Google system, ChatGPT and OpenAI is probably better. If you're a level 3 person, what I call a snorkeler or freediver, you're probably really eager to try a variety of different digital tools and connect them. And ChatGPT offers a lot more flexibility here. ChatGPT offers a vast library of third-party plugins, which are a little confusing at first, but ChatGPT is making it easier and easier all the time. They offer API connections quite easily in custom GPTs. Once you get the hang of it, I still thought it was confusing at first, but it gets easier. And it can also be connected to a huge range of other services. Now, if you're a level 4 diver, you're probably using all of them. You understand all of them and you don't need my assistance or help, so keep at it. Hopefully someday I'll be down there with you, getting closer. Now, let's go a little deeper on how they stack up for everyday users, and then we can talk about how to evaluate which platform best fits your tasks. So let's put them kind of head to head on a few common tasks. For creative and professional writing, ChatGPT has the edge. Reviewers note its superior ability to adapt, its tone, maintain engagement, and handle complex, nuanced prompts. It's generally a little better for brainstorming and generating long-form content. ChatGPT gives you more ways to refine. So does Claude and some of the other models that aren't with the big platforms. But ChatGPT allows you to put in more information for all your chats. It allows you to develop more subtle and deep patterns for your voice and the way you want it to write and instructions. And so it's a little better for people who are creatives and trying to get really refined results in certain ways with writing. Gemini is great for clear, concise text, like professional emails, but its style can sometimes feel a bit more programmatic maybe, but there are ways that you can give it instructions as well. There's just not as many ways. For research and summarization, it's really a split decision. Gemini's killer feature is its live, real-time access to Google search. Even on the free plan, which is huge for current events and working on things that you want to find quickly. Google also has multiple extremely helpful tools for research. Both systems or both platforms have a deep research option, but Gemini and Google also have Notebook LM. And it's particularly good when you want to bring all or mostly your own sources or have specific sources and limit it. It's great for schools. It's good for researching when you're limiting things and you want to have a little bit more restriction. And then deep research will draw from literally hundreds of sources and get all this information for you. Both of the deep research options, in my opinion, the overwhelming part is going in and checking the sources and figuring out what not to use. Now for image and voice interaction, it's a little varied. When it comes to generating images, Gemini offers image generation on its free tier, which is a big plus. However, most reviews find that ChatGPT's DALL-E model produces more detailed and accurate images that stick closer to the prompt. I haven't played around with ChatGPT 5 and DALL-E images yet, but I will do that soon. But for voice chats, ChatGPT's voice mode is often described as sounding more natural and human-like. For videos, I find Google to be far better, especially when you're talking about staying within the free stuff. Within the one payment. Google's Veo 3 and Google Flow are wonderful beginning video creation models that are really, really cool and fun. And I just find Gemini to be better for video at that level. For ecosystem integration, Gemini's the clear win. If you are either already in the Google workspace or like a small business owner or someone who's concerned about money, its ability to act as a connective element across Gmail, Drive, and Calendar is unmatched for productivity. And it is a lot easier than ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a more flexible, platform agnostic tool that relies on those third-party plugins. So you can do more if you're willing to learn a lot more in some areas. But Gemini is just easier. It'll do all kinds of things automatically. You don't have to set anything up. You just tell it to do it. So now let's talk about price. Both have great free tiers, and ChatGPT 5 is much, much better for free users now. They really needed to catch up with Google on that, and they did. Google's free tier is a bit more generous and a little bit, I think, better for the full integration. Their paid plans are both around $20 a month, and then you can go up to $200 immediately. But we're just going to stick with that $20 a month plan. But the value is different. With ChatGPT Plus, you're paying for access to the most powerful models on an extended basis. With the free one, it's still limited after a certain amount of time. But with Google AI Pro, you get the advanced model plus 2 terabytes of Google Drive storage and all of the other things that the Google Workspace offers. It's like a bundled deal. I love a deal. I'm a frugal person. And so for me, that $20 a month for all of those benefits is really enticing. Now, I also have a paid ChatGPT account, but that's through work. So it really shows the different strategies. OpenAI is selling the AI itself, while Google is selling a supercharged version of its existing ecosystem. So if you are a less experienced user and you want an AI operating system, basically meaning you want something that's going to allow you to do lots of stuff together and intermingled, that $20 is a great deal for the Google Gemini. Now, beyond what we pay and the features that come with that, we have to talk about the hidden cost of AI, which we always want to do. I used to, at the beginning of this podcast, call myself an AI enthusiast. And then the more research I did, especially after reading The Empire of AI by Karen Howe, which is featured in episode 12, there's no doubt that I consider myself an AI realist, and I want to be even more careful than ever because the social and ethical issues are really important, and these hidden costs really should be considered because we don't see them and we don't feel like we pay them, but other communities and other people do. So this is where we really have to remember one of those core mottos, and I believe this more than ever: never trust AI. Always check your sources. And AI is much, much better. Like one of the big advancements with ChatGPT 5 is they have a far better level of hallucinations, much lower. I mean, they're talking about below 1% for certain mainstream kinds of tasks. And so we still should check our sources for lots of reasons. We need to check the process, make sure that what we're doing is aligned with what we want to do. We're not just excited about the tool. And then, as emphasized in the SWIMMER acronym, review the results. Always review the results. No matter how good AI gets, it's still important that we not trust it. But we also have to make sure we don't trust the labs or the charismatic leaders. I've never fallen for, people's sales pitches. I was inclined toward the amazing abilities of AI, but I've never felt comfortable with Sam Altman or his incredibly optimistic and misleading idealism. Their claims that AI is for the betterment of humanity are just not true. They're just not. AI is not for the betterment of humanity. It's an incredibly powerful tool that is used for business and efficiency, but it's not bettering all of humanity. It's improving things for wealthy people. It's improving things for people like me, but not people who live in South America or the African continent or other places. It's not. And we have to remember that. So we don't want to trust any of them. The first thing we want to talk about is the environmental impact, which was discussed in the episode with The Empire of AI. But there's a paradox here that these companies have ambitious green energy goals and they tout how much money they spend or all the things they do to create green workspaces and carbon neutral facilities. But AI is an incredibly hungry technology for both electricity and water. And so an example is training the GPT-3 model alone used enough electricity to generate 550 metric tons of CO2, just training GPT-3. This is a model from years ago. That's like a car driving 1.2 million miles. For every 20 to 50 queries on ChatGPT, use about half a liter of fresh water for cooling. And there are trillions of queries on ChatGPT. Google's emissions have climbed over 48% since 2019, and it's mostly due to the AI data centers. All of these companies are building these incredibly large, powerful data centers, and it's an environmental problem, a big problem. So Google has climbed more than OpenAI, but OpenAI outsources a lot of their compute power, so their numbers are probably about the same when really adjusted for their use. Now, after the environmental impact, there's the user privacy issue. And there are all kinds of problems and issues with AI. We know it. Without a doubt, no matter what they say, they scraped the internet and violated the intellectual property guidelines, if not laws, that were at least assumed to be in place. And they basically, in my opinion, forced a change, the way we talk about it. There are millions of creators who were screwed by AI. And now the courts have started to make decisions and put some guidelines on, and now the companies are mostly abiding by them because they don't want to get in big trouble anymore. So they're willing to pay for certain access. So that's one issue. They have violated our intellectual property rights or people's intellectual property rights and that privacy. But in addition to that, there's also the content that we're creating now. And so I lean toward Google with this. I find it stunning that I would say that I'm more likely to believe in Google when it comes to data, but it's true. OpenAI's consumer products use what's called an opt-out model. By default, they can use our conversations to train future models unless we actively go in and disable the chat history. You have to go in and find it in the settings, and you have to turn it off, which most people don't do. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's like less than 1% of people who use it go in and actually turn that off. Google, on the other hand, has what's called an opt-in model, meaning that you have to click the button to tell it that it can use the conversations to train their models. Now, they leverage their enterprise-grade security within Gemini in the workspace to do this. And I think that part of this is because of their long-standing work with schools and other organizations where they've already set up a security system that protects those rights. And so they are always trying to get data, but right now their default is the opt-in model where you have to give them permission. And this is a huge distinction. I'll never forget when I realized creating my custom GPTs that there was this tiny little like arrow caret at the bottom of the instructions that I didn't know what it was, and I clicked it and opened it up, and that's where you saw the sentence that said, click this tiny little square to tell it can't use your conversations. So not only do you have to opt out, but they make it really hard to find. So the final issue with these hidden costs is the ghost work, which once again was talked about in Karen Howe's book. But this work is often outsourced to poor countries in the global south. A Time investigation revealed that OpenAI had used Kenyan workers, paying them less than $2 an hour to filter toxic and traumatic content from training data. And so we want that. We want that out. We want the AI to be able to identify these awful things that we don't want to come up. But they paid people very low amounts of money to do mentally distressing work. And then when it started to cause them problems, they outsourced it to another company so that they could say that they weren't responsible for what happened. This isn't just an OpenAI problem. It's an industry-wide problem where psychologically taxing work is outsourced to low-wage workers, which creates a disconnect between the company's ethical principles and the reality of their supply chains and the things that they're doing. So where does this leave us? The choice between ChatGPT and Gemini isn't about which one is better, but about which is better for you. But I will give you my recommendations. For the creative professional, writers, marketers, designers, I'd recommend ChatGPT. Its strength in creative writing, brainstorming, and superior image generation is worth it. And it will force you to learn to use those plugins and those other tools, but you're a creative professional, so you should be ready for that challenge. Just make sure that you look carefully at the privacy settings and make intelligent decisions. For the researcher or student, it's a split recommendation. For up-to-the-minute topics, Gemini's live Google search access is invaluable, and they're going to almost certainly stay in the lead because they are adjusting their SEO search system to an AI search system. And Gemini is just going to get better and better at that. For deep analysis and structured summarization of existing texts, ChatGPT might serve you better. When it comes to researching or what type of student you are, for high school students, Gemini is definitely better. For college students, ChatGPT is better because ChatGPT is creating all kinds of agreements with colleges around the United States. For the Google Power user or small business owner, I would definitely recommend Gemini. It's the clear winner, especially if you're concerned about time and money. Gemini is easier, it's less expensive in the long run, and especially if you're already working in the Google Workspace, its seamless integration offers a level of productivity that's hard to beat, and it's really quite simple. For the privacy-conscious user, once again, I would recommend Gemini, especially within the Google Workspace, because it offers that opt-in privacy, and it also is just a little bit more vigilant about certain types of things because of its connection to schools and other organizations. I would also say that, in my opinion, ChatGPT poses a slightly more serious threat when it comes to psychological manipulation. Both models have their problems, but its proficiency in mimicking empathetic conversation makes it a powerful tool for social psychological manipulation. I did a deep research analysis and found that ChatGPT had far more instances of individuals being pulled into frightening psychological situations, whereas Gemini, because of its integration with calendar, is really a little bit more open to being hacked by foreign governments and things like that. So Gemini has its downsides, and there have been cases with Gemini manipulating users, but ChatGPT is a little bit more of a threat. And so that's something to really consider, especially for younger users. So once again, we start talking about schools, Gemini is clearly the answer. Basically, both of these platforms are incredibly powerful. And what we want to do is be informed users so that we can make choices that will best work for our goals. We can also send signals to the market about what we value and what we think is important through these choices. They will listen. It is a huge fight between these companies to stay in the lead and to get more users. So by weighing the features alongside the ethical costs, we can all play a part in shaping a more responsible future for AI. We need to pay attention to how we use it, how often we use it, and the way we use it. So we'll have an episode soon on tips and strategies to be as ethical as possible. So this is how we can build our skills and our confidence and truly learn how these tools should fit into our individual lives. Thanks for spending time with me today on AI for Everyone. I hope this episode gave you something useful to think about or something new to try. If you enjoyed it, please tell your peers and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. You're also invited to join the Hanson Education Services newsletter, where I share bonus tools, practical teaching ideas, real-world AI examples, and curated updates to help you stay ahead in the world shaped by AI. To learn more or to connect with me directly, visit hansoneducationservices.com. That's where you'll find all the podcast links, resources, and more ways to grow your AI confidence. Thanks again, and remember, the most important 21st century skill is to always learn how to keep learning.